I, on behalf of the Kohima Educational Trust and the Kohima Educational Society, humbly take this privilege and honor to welcome the guest of honor, the Honorable Chief Minister of Nagaland, Mr. Nipurio. Thank you, sir, for your graciousness to be with us for the prize-giving function. Your presence truly speaks for itself towards your magnanimity for the people that you serve. And I welcome Ms. Sylvia May, the CEO of the Kohima Educational Trust, who has come all the way from United Kingdom. Your very presence reminds us of the theme of the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Kohima: remembrance, reconciliation, and rebirth. I also welcome the winners of the first Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature. You have made us proud for leading us into the literary world. As we continue to commemorate the year-long 75th anniversary of the Battle of Kohima, it is indeed difficult to understand that such a fierce battle fought 75 years ago can give birth to such a function as this of today, where we are honoring and recognizing the Naga knowledge keepers and idea givers. Allow me also to say that the KET and KES has also been actively involved in the promotion of education.
Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Nipurio, Mrs. Sylvia May, our Managing Trustee and CEO of KET, Mr. Stephen White, our Trustee as well, and ladies and gentlemen. The Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature has been the result of long deliberations. Gordon was very keen to promote better understanding and unity within Naga society, disparate as we are, with so many tribes and languages. This was the main reason he wanted to bring out a glossary of the Naga languages so that Naga tribes could at least learn the most common words and phrases of each other's languages and communicate in Naga languages instead of using a foreign or non-Naga language. The result was keywords, as Dr. Muli has mentioned just a while back, a glossary of 16 recognized languages of Nagaland state. But Gordon was not satisfied with that. He wanted the best in Nagas and Naga society to emerge, and he wanted the Nagas to give their best to the world. He asked me to do a little research on the literature of Naga people. The result was I had to do some research and do a write-up on the history of Nagaland as reflected in its literature, which you can find on the KET website and which has been quoted by different writers. Having found the gaps in Naga literature, Gordon wanted to encourage Naga writing and to promote Naga writers. It took several years, but this was how the idea of a literature prize for Naga writers emerged. Posthumously, we decided to name the prize after him. A key intent of the Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature is to facilitate free and rational thinking and to assist the thinking elements in Naga society to play a larger and meaningful role in society at large, and not to confine and restrict rational thoughts and debates to academic institutions alone. The greatness and genius of Gordon Graham was that when he met people, he saw them for what they are, but he would not stop there. He would look for and found the potentials in people. And most of the time, he also inspired people to live their highest potentials. For the first Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature, we made a lot of concessions and threw wide open all the doors possible to allow any and every Naga author to participate to the extent possible. We were inexperienced. This was the first prize of its kind in Naga society, and there may have been so many loopholes in the first attempt. But we were determined to make a start, and we did. The number of participants in this first competition was not too many, but we were gratified on the whole with the quality of participation. A few words on our judges. We were very fortunate to find 3 outstanding people who were willing to become our independent judges. They were Professor Udayan Misra from Assam, former head of Department of English in Dibrugarh University, and widely acknowledged as probably the foremost author in English from the Northeast. He is a published author both in India and abroad. Then we had Dr. Akum Lomchari, founder, editor, and managing director of the Morung Express. He is an activist and educator in the areas of human rights, self-determination, and peace building. Our third judge is Dr. Kevichusa. She was the head of Department of English in Kohima College and a winner of the Meritorious Award of Nagaland government in 2012. Due to health reasons, Professor Misra could not be with us today, but we are very grateful that the other two judges are here with us today, and grateful to all of them for their sterling work in selecting our winners despite many difficulties they had to confront, mostly because of our inexperience. But despite of it all, we gave them a totally free hand, and I think on the whole, we had an enjoyable experience together. More than just selecting the winners, I must add, they also brought many gifts in the form of suggestions to the table for the future conduct of the prize. And we are most grateful to them for these. As I said above, the quality of participation was very good. Our participation also spanned 3 continents of Naga authors, despite the low number. Just a few words on the winners, although I will not discuss their works, which one of our judges will later on speak about. First, Easterine Kire, our winner in the fiction category. She is well known to all of us as probably the foremost Naga woman author. A prolific writer, her books have been winning prizes in different parts of India and abroad. We are sad that she is not able to be physically present today with us. Her brother and Dr. Joyce Angami will be representing her sisters as well. Our winner in the non-fiction category is Kethoser Kevichusa. By profession, he is a speaker, trainer, and visiting faculty in many colleges and universities in Nagaland, India, and also a thesis supervisor at Oxford in the UK. He is an evangelist as well. Before I close, I would like to say that the second edition of the Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature starts today. The advertisement will appear in the newspapers tomorrow. This is the flyer. So those Naga authors who wish to participate in the competition can start submitting their entries. The prizes for the second edition of the Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature will be handed over on December 1st, which is Nagaland Statehood Day. The flyer for the competition is available over there for those who have not received it, and is available, you can pick it up anytime. So thank you so much.
The Kohima Education Trust, the Chief Minister of Nagaland, members of the Kohima Educational Society, and honored guests. Good evening. I stand here on behalf of the 3-member jury comprising of Professor Udayan Misra, Dr. Kevichusa, and myself. Professor Misra is not here. He's based in Guwahati. He sends his regards and apologies. Firstly, I must acknowledge that the process was very dynamic. It was a very engaging, enriching, as well as a very transformative process, a very educated process for most of us. And so for me, I want to first express on behalf of all of us a gratitude to the Kohima Educational Society for inviting us to be part of that process in this first maiden prize, so to speak, and also in many ways placing their trust on us. Allow me to read a few of our shared thoughts, the judges we have discuss, and we thought that we would want to share this few thoughts with you of what we went through before actually arriving at our decision. The first is the due process that we went through. And through this lens, she weaves folklore, the supernatural, and dreams that evoke a vivid imagery of the Naga heart and its relationship to nature. For me personally, it reminds me of the author Ngugi wa Thiong'o's art of decolonizing the mind. We found Kevichusa's book Forgiveness and Politics to be quite exceptional because of its scope and treatment of a topic which has great relevance within both the historic and current Naga socio-political situation. The author's deep knowledge of the biblical texts and the way he connects them with the main corpus of the book, which takes up the themes of forgiveness and politics, is indeed commendable. He successfully interweaves philosophical and religious concepts with issues on the ground related to the Naga situation and draws lessons from them. For a person whose own family has been affected by several instances of violence and loss, we appreciated the author's ability to maintain objectivity while drawing on his experience to embrace and celebrate the human spirit of forgiveness. The last century, as most of us would be aware, is said to be the most violent century in humankind. And through this book, perhaps the 21st century, can we strive together to make the 21st century a century of peace and forgiveness? And also more essentially, I think by Kethoser winning this book, perhaps it would also encourage readers, general readers, to read more about academic books and issues that affects our lives. At the same time, I think the jury, we felt that we needed to acknowledge some of the books that were also shortlisted. One is Inzan Kikon's book, The Starry Night. It incorporates contemporary issues with which readers across the spectrum from youth to families could identify. As an evolving and emerging young author, he was able to develop the character.
I'm going to read out the acceptance speech. Acceptance speech of Dr. Easterine Kire for the Gordon Graham Prize in Naga Literature. I thank God and the organizers for accepting my book, When the River Sleeps, for the Gordon Graham's Prize in Naga Literature. It is a great honor to be selected for the prestigious award, and I am very grateful. I would like to mention that I have met Gordon Graham when he was alive. He was a most generous and wise man, full of love and concern for the Naga people. Keeping his memory alive by instituting this prize in his name is a wonderful action taken by Kohima Educational Trust. I also take this moment to remember Lily Das, who along with Gordon Graham worked very hard for the Kohima Educational Trust to realize its plans for the Nagas. Their dreams have borne good fruit today. We, the Nagas, are grateful to the programs introduced by Kohima Education Trust and Kohima Education Society to support underprivileged and deserving students in our areas. Thank you again. May God bless you and keep you.
Respected Chairperson, Honorable Chief Minister, CEO and trustees of the Kohima Educational Trust, UK, President and members of the Kohima Educational Society, fellow entrants, the competition, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen. Having written a book on forgiveness and having won an award for it, I want to begin with a confession and ask for forgiveness. The 10th commandment says, thou shalt not covet. But I must confess that for the past several months, I've been the most covetous man in the world, coveting this very prestigious prize that is named after this extraordinary man, Gordon Graham. And I'm indeed honored and delighted to be receiving this award today. Most of you will not have read my book, so I will just give you a gist of my book, which doesn't mean you should not buy. Anyway, like I said, or you know, it's about forgiveness and politics. First of all, it's a rather academic book, admittedly dull, boring, little difficult also. But it is basically a reflection, a sustained philosophical and ethical reflection on the concepts and practices of forgiveness and politics. But it is not just a cerebral book. I would also say that it is a visceral book. It is off the head in a way, but it is from the heart. In the 1950s, my maternal grandfather was killed by Naga nationalists simply because he was a government servant, Dr. Motso Muli. Then in the 90s, two of my paternal uncles, my father's younger brothers, they were both assassinated over issues related to Naga politics. But in each of these cases, our family, very feebly, limping and imperfectly, we chose to forgive and not to take vengeance. I don't know if we could have taken vengeance. I don't think we are courageous enough for that. But since then, I've always reflected on the meaning of forgiveness and its implications for politics, or in politics, which led me to my research. So it's something that is close to my heart, this topic. But it is not just cerebral and visceral. I would also like to think that it is practical, because I want to draw the insights of my research and see if they are applicable or relevant for contexts like Nagaland. So I suppose I would put it this way: it is of the head, from the heart, for the hands. Cerebral, visceral, practical. And the basic thesis of my book is very simple, very simple. It is basically this: that in a political context or a polis where there are differences and there are conflicting interests and ideologies and visions, there are two basic ways of resolving our differences and our conflict. One is go to war. Second one is do politics. By politics, we simply mean the art, the craft of negotiation, compromise, dialogue, give and take. Talking to people we'd rather kill, listening to views that we disagree with, accepting arrangements that are less than ideal. That is the art of politics. And my basic argument is, if we are to do politics, and if we are to get a political settlement, then whether we use the word forgiveness or not, forgiveness must be an operative principle. And very interestingly, even in the Naga context, since 1957, there have been people, including my grandfather, Kevichusa, who have maintained and said, and this is on record, they said, we maintain that the only answer to the Naga question is a satisfactory political settlement. And I think that was, in many ways, very prophetic. So that is basically the thesis of my book. What I would want to do now, since I will probably never win an award again, I want to thank the people who have shaped my life and shaped this book, and indeed this award. First, I'd like to thank KET and KES for giving me this award. I'm really honored. Second, I want to thank the judges. Without you, I wouldn't be here, and I would be 1 lakh rupees the poorer. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the Chief Minister here, and I'm particularly glad that I'm receiving the award from him today, because both he and his predecessor, Mr. S.C. Jamir, they have survived assassination attempts. But both of them, they have displayed remarkable example in displaying politics of forgiveness. So I'm particularly glad that I'm receiving this award from him. I want to thank Langham Partnership, my publishers in the UK. They not only sponsored my research, but also published my book, and the book is I don't know about the content, but the look, it's a very fine book, and I wonder if it was the font that ultimately outflanked the competition and clinched the award. So I want to thank my publishers. I want to thank my family, my parents, my father and mother, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my siblings, my brother. Except for my father and my father-in-law, my family members don't read anything that I write, but they cheer me on, so they are my blind cheerleaders, so I thank them. I want to thank my wife. I'm realizing that marriage is a prolonged act of forgiveness. It is unconditional love requires forgiveness, so I want to thank her for her support. I want to thank my 3 sons. I brought them along here. In some ways, this book is not about them, but in some ways, this book is for them and for their future. A great thinker in this area of forgiveness and politics, he said, protecting the next generation's right to live and to work, to read and to write, that is the simple moral core of forgiveness in politics. So this is a book for them, that they might live and work, that they might write and read in a more secure, peaceful and fairer Nagaland. And I want to thank finally my Lord Jesus Christ. I follow him because his is the way that makes best sense to me. And it makes sense to me because his way, his is the only way that begins with forgiveness. And the longer I follow him, I'm realizing that it is not just a starting point, but forgiveness is the middle point, and I'm sure it will be the end point also. And finally, in concluding this remark, I want to dedicate this award to the living family members of all those who have been killed in the political conflicts that have ravaged the land of the Nagas. And this certainly includes the Nagas, civilians, politicians, cadres, combatants, their families. I want to dedicate it to them. But not just them. This is a historic time. I want to dedicate it to the living descendants and families of the Japanese and the British soldiers who lost their lives in our land. But not just them. I want to dedicate it to the families of the Indian military forces, and perhaps even the Burmese forces and officers who lost their lives in the Naga conflict and in Nagaland. I suppose we should be able to commemorate the dead of those that we don't necessarily approve of, or whose positions we don't necessarily agree with. But I suppose we can still feel a sense of loss and sadness and grief at the loss of so many lives in our land. So it is to the living families of the dead that I dedicate this award. And if this award can be an iota of a contribution, or even a veneer of a balm for the healing of the nations, then I suppose the elaborate exercises of the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Kohima, being commemorated no less under the theme Remembrance, Reconciliation, Rebirth. I suppose if this award can even contribute a little bit to the healing of the nations, then all our exercises, well, I suppose, will be worth our while. Thank you very much.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today at the inaugural Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature. It takes me back 4 years, almost to the day, when Dad and I sat in the Kohima Educational Trust office in his house in Marlow, discussing his idea of developing an award for Naga authors. The idea was to encourage budding writers and to write and to build confidence in the written word, to recognise and reward those knowledge keepers and the idea givers of Naga society. Gordon Graham was a writer his entire life. For him, the written word was everything. Everything he wrote would be mulled over, thought about, rewritten, drafted, rewritten again until it was perfect. He weighed every single word and searched for the one that could replace the 5 currently being used. He would love to tell the story attributed to Mark Twain, amongst others, when he wrote a lengthy letter to a fellow correspondent, apologising for the length of his letter. He explained that he did not have time to write a short one. Gordon's understanding of language was immense. A classic scholar, he understood the importance of the origins of words and their usage. His thoughts took him to the many Naga languages and the difficulty of inter-tribe communication. If there were so many languages, how did people communicate? He believed word usage is the key to communication. If we have the right word in the right language, we could communicate to the best of our ability. It was that thought which led to the publication of Key Words, a glossary of Naga languages. Having said that, Gordon was not the greatest foreign linguist. He worked hard to master German when he was asked to take over as managing director of the German office of the company he worked for. But it didn't come easily. I have found notebooks full of German verb conjugation and vocabulary, painstakingly listed out by Gordon, rewritten, marked. He even gave a speech in German once, but I think rather heavily edited by his Swiss wife. I also found even older notebooks full of closely written Hindi vocab. He lived and worked in India for 10 years and obviously felt he should try and master at least one of the many languages spoken. Since his death in 2014, I've gone through many of his papers. He kept every speech, article and paper he ever wrote, all filed by the decade, along with the diary of that year, marked with the event or publication the piece was written for. Interestingly, 95% of the articles and speeches that were filed were all drafts. Very few were the final piece delivered. Each is heavily marked with changes, corrections, improvements. As I said, Gordon aimed for perfection every time, with everything he wrote, however small. And he loved to correspond. He loved to correspond by letter. Friends will testify to the number of letters he wrote, none of them casual. Every letter was thought about, pondered over, and often demanded as much thought in return from the recipient. I can guiltily recall my impatience when, as a busy publishing executive, receiving another email from Dad, which was always quietly demanding a reply and much thought. How could I find time for that? I don't think I was alone, as Dad's files hold testimony to the number of replies received that were worth keeping. The emergence of email was a source of amazement to Gordon. He never understood it and bemoaned the fact that it encouraged even more brevity, more slapdash replies, unthought through responses. For every email he received, hundreds of thousands, he employed a secretary to print each one out, give to him on paper, which he would then read again, and think about before forming a reply. This would probably take a day or two. He would then dictate his reply onto a tape machine, which he would give to his secretary to type out, let him have the first draft so he could rewrite it, improve it, and make perfect. Every email. He refused to allow the modern method of communication to change the way he believed in communicating. The quicker devices became, the more efficient the app, the more frustrated he was. Texting was incomprehensible, and I don't think he ever saw text speak, abbreviations of words to make it quicker to write. He would have been shocked. Anything worth saying is worth giving time to and should not be rushed. We cannot take our words back. They are precious. Back to 4 years ago today, back to 4 years almost to the day. For over a year, Gordon and Charles had been having long communications and written conversations about this idea of a literary award. They had been back and forth. It was his current project. Gordon constantly had ideas and always needed a project on the go. And Charles was a ready fellow correspondent. At the age of 95, he was determined to keep his brain functioning, and the only way he knew how to do that was to think about new ideas and discuss them and communicate about them. And he would have been just so pleased to hear the speakers tonight. He would have loved to have been here, and I think he would have been just immensely proud at what has been said from you all. Gordon then had a stroke, literally the following day after this conversation. It left him unable to speak, and he died 2 weeks later, mercifully quickly, as a life without use of words would have been intolerable. I don't think Gordon ever thought about legacy. Perhaps the vainer side of him did, but I don't think that was what was important for him. But the Kohima Educational Trust was his idea, and the one to which he was most committed. Whilst he never spoke much about the war during his life, thoughts of the Nagas had stayed with him for all of that time. He came to Kohima 3 times, once in 1944 to fight in a war, the second time 10 years later when he returned and was shown around the Naga village by a small boy. This visit inspired an article called "The Trees Are All Young" on Garrison Hill, which was when the idea first originated in his mind, the idea of creating something which would express some kind of gratitude to the people of Nagaland who had sacrificed much during those battles. The memory lay dormant for many years, but in 2004, on the 60th anniversary of the battle, he and several other fellow veterans founded the Kohima Educational Trust, a trust designed to help and assist with educational needs for young Nagas. It began in a very small way, veterans of the battle giving £5 here, £10 there. people wanting to show their respect and admiration of a people thousands of miles away. His idea would never have got off the ground without the help of people here. Felicitated, our first chairman, and Dr. Piemo Nulli, our current chairman, and of course Charles Chasey, the KES president, together have formed the Kohima Educational Society. Our immense thanks to them all for what they do to achieve the aims thought of so long ago. I would also like to say a particular thank you to Charles. It is through his endeavours and sheer hard work that the Gordon Graham Prize for Naga Literature was launched last year. His tireless work meant that Gordon's last idea came to such a magnificent conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Respected Mrs. Sylvia May, the CEO, Kohima Educational Trust, UK, Mr. P. Nulli, Chairman, Kohima Educational Society, and Mr. Chase, President, KES, officials of the Kohima Education Society, and other members of the KT and KES, senior government officers, friends from the media, the respected judges, and the winners, the awardees of this Gordon Graham Prize winner, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be with you this evening in this first function of the award ceremony of the Gordon Graham Prize for the Naga Literature, and I congratulate Kohima Educational Society for this noble initiative that will go a long way in encouraging Naga authors and writers. I also congratulate the winners, Mrs. Easterine, Kire, and Mr. Kethoser and new Kevichusa, for being deserving winners of the award. There couldn't have been more worthy winners of this award for this year. You are not only celebrated authors, but also role models for our youth. Our youth inspires to be like you, and I hope that you will guide and motivate our young boys and girls in being creative and engaging in constructive endeavors. I would like to say many things, but my wife advised that tonight I should give a written speech because I have so many hangover of election campaign. So I may talk many nonsense. So I frame my mind into these few points. It is indeed commendable that Kohima Educational Society has instituted this award in the memory of Gordon Graham in the 75th year of Battle of Kohima, which has been defining moment of Second World War, and the Allied forces and the Japanese fought the most fierce and intense battle of the Second World War. I believe Gordon Graham fought at the Battle of Kohima as a young captain of the Queen's Own Cameroon Highlanders in the British 2nd Division under General Grover. For his act of bravery, he won 2 military crosses in the Burma campaign. After his retirement from the army, he took up journalism and authored books, including the famous book the trees are all young on Garrison Hill, which had accounts of events of Battle of Kohima. A humanist as he was, he regarded the help extended by the Naga people in the British soldiers as a debt of honor. And with his desire to do something meaningful for the people of the Nagas, he initiated and founded the Kohima Educational Trust as a charitable education trust in the UK way back in 2004 to assist with the education of the descendants of the Naga allies who helped the British to win the Battle of Kohima. Over the years, Kohima Educational Trust has grown in stature and has His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, as its patron, who also visited Kohima in 2012. And I was there as Chief Minister to receive it. And he loved the people here, and he also expressed his gratitude. I'm happy to note that the Kohima Educational Society registered in Nagaland, implementing initiatives as the India partner of the British Kohima Educational Trust. I compliment KT and KS for having taken commendable initiatives like scholarship for high school students, English teaching scholarship, reference library dictionary, Naga bibliography, school hostel at Pansa, Rai Gibson basketball court in Peg, and the Battle of Kohima, publication of keywords as glossary of the 16 officially recognized tribes, languages of Nagaland. And has been truly remarkable and helpful for various Naga tribes to communicate with one another. The initiative of awarding promising Naga author for works of both fiction and non-fiction will help promote our young promising writers towards excellence and scholarship. I have been observing the increasing number of authors from Nagaland, including some teenagers, and this is a very healthy sign. This initiative will help promote good writing, recognizing and rewarding the knowledge keepers and ID givers of Naga society. These awards will also encourage reading and writing within the Naga community. It is said that reading books open horizons of thinking and knowledge. Recently, there was an article I read about the common habit of most business leaders of today, the habit of breakthrough knowledge, which keeps and helps them think faster and make better decisions. This inculcated through reading books. Most successful people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, they find time to read books, even though they have the busiest of schedules. And I really appreciate those people who get time, or if they don't have time also, they make time to read books, which I'm lacking. And I wish them all the best. Thank you and God bless.
Dr. Kethoser and Kevichusa for the fiction category. I would like to request someone to accept the prize on behalf of Dr. Easterine Kire. Unfortunately, she could not be with us as she's in Norway. So we have her brother, Albert Kire, to accept the prize on behalf of Dr. Easterine Kire. Thank you and congratulations to both the winners.